Hey, can you hear me now? Oh, this is crazy. Give me a minute. I don't know why the other mic isn't working. Can you hear me? While I try and fix this stupid delay. Okay, I'm gonna get there. Scrolling. Hello. Oh boy, technical issues. I guess it's good that I have this mic just kind of sitting here, because I've been testing it. Yay! So that was a crazy beginning to the whole thing. You guys are still hearing echo? That can't be possible. Hold on, let me open up this thing and just fix this stuff. No reverb. Mail broadcast. Okay. How's that? Doop. Okay. So I am now on the Presonus Revelator USB mic. That is not really doing what I want it to do, but it'll do for now. Let's put on this high pass filter at around 80, maybe 160. Okay, that sounds better. Yeah. Okay. So here we are. Video is rubber banding though. Gosh, like my signal is fine here. I don't know what the problem is. Like I got 100% bandwidth, network connection, 9 out of 10. So anyway, we are back. It's the Painfully Honest daily show where this is day number 5, the end of the week. It's the end of week 1, and I have been doing this. Alvin, back to the Wizard Squad. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Yeah. So it's been a week. Daily live streams are kind of crazy because, I mean, I'm sure it gets easier after you do it for a while. But the truth of the matter is, like, it's like, whoa. Trying to figure out what to talk about every day and all that other stuff. This is all set up the way that it was before I left yesterday, and so it should have been fine. I don't know. If you want the lava lamp, all you have to do is go to I got it at Menards, which is like a Home Depot kind of place out here in the Iowa, in the Midwest, I guess. And so yeah, I just got it there. The only problem was the lamp, the little light bulb was burned out. So you got to be careful about that. You got to get you got to make sure that you get yourself one. And then I bought a new light bulb at Menards for the lava lamp, and it wasn't hot enough to melt the stuff. So I had to order light bulbs from Amazon. Yeah, X Plumber, I don't know what the deal is about the rubber banding. It's like it says my signal's good, so it might be something somewhere else. Might be my new background. I hide my new background. No, I'm not going to hide it can't be the background. Today is Good Friday. It is a Good Friday for a live stream. Hey, David, good to see you again, man. Yeah, they've got a few different ones at the Menards here. So yeah, definitely check them out. I used to have like 3 or 4 lava lamps, and eventually they all fell off the desk and broke, which is always fun. I don't recommend breaking lava lamps, people, not at all. Bob, I saw in the chat before we got going that you were not feeling so good. You've got some sort of rotator cuff injury. I mean, I was wondering why you weren't pitching for the Yankees this season, but I hope you're feeling better, man. It could be the ISP. I mean, I pay for stupid upload speeds. Well, not stupid, but Um, it's I pay for 60 up, so it should be fine, but it doesn't seem to be fine. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so happy birthday, Apple. Today's Apple's 45th birthday. On this day in 1976, Apple started in Steve Jobs' garage, uh, where they built, what was it, the very first Apple computer, I guess, which was just like a box with stuff in it. And then they kept on going, and now here they are, a $1 trillion company. $1 trillion company. That's crazy. Draftsman, good morning to you. Um, so yeah, the question about Apple, like, so Steve Jobs gave this whole address to his well, not address, but he sent a memo saying that the job is not yet done. Let me see. Let me pull it up here. Here we go. He said, on April 1st of 1976, a company was formed in Cupertino to create transformative products that redefine what technology can achieve and make people's lives better. In the process, 45 years later, we mark this occasion by rededicating ourselves to that mission and keeping it alive for a long time to come rather than to remember it fondly as something past. Okay, that's good. He did have a quote, and then he goes on to talk about, all the stuff that they do. Then he has a quote from Steve Jobs that says, "It's been an amazing journey so far. We've barely yet begun. And that remember that none of us will be here for the end of the story, but it's on all of us to make sure it's one worth telling." So, inspirational words from Steve Jobs. No, from from Tim Cook. Inspirational words from Tim Cook. Um, it's like it's hard to. I guess now is a good time to sort of think about, well, what has Apple become in the years since those faithful days in the garage? And if you think about the journey of Apple, they were first and foremost, I guess, a they were first and foremost a computer company, of course. In fact, they were called Apple Computers, which they changed later to Apple Corp or Corporation or something like that. Steve Wozniak should definitely get some props, but I think he still gets residuals, so those are probably props enough for the Woz. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that it's been that long because it makes me feel old. But what is the state of Apple now? So they started out, they were not a, they were not anything but a computer company, and they were a boutique computer company for the longest time. I mean, when there was no such thing as a boutique computer company, Apple was a boutique computer company. And I think originally they just sold the plans for how to make an Apple computer, and then they made their own, and then they made the Apple II, and the Apple II was hugely successful, and they just kind of went on from there. And it's an interesting, yeah, I don't know, because they didn't really, they were always kind of like the artist computer, right? And for the longest time, it was Microsoft first and Apple second. But Apple didn't really become Apple until they came out with the iPod, right? I mean, Apple really shot through the roof and became like a much larger thing when they became an accessory company, I guess. The the iPod was just one of those things, and then of course the iPod led to the iPhone, and the iPhone has led to the iPad, and then all the different things that we see now. And now we see that the technology that was started with the iPhone and the iPad has now made its way over to the computer side, and the ARM chips that they started using in those machines are now being used to to power their computers. And I got to say, regardless of whatever difficulties I might have had with the M1 chips, I cannot take anything away from the fact that the M1 chips, as they develop, as we make the transition, et cetera, as all that stuff happens, the M1 chips are going to be something that really changes everything. I think that we're going to see a sea change in computing. I don't know if it'll widen the gap between I don't know if it'll widen the gap between Microsoft and Apple again, because even though the M1 chips are great, they the M1 chips don't play games still. In fact, you can't run boot camp on an M1 chip yet, right? So it's kind of crazy. Because I think we're going to see like that sort of separation again, whereas like everything was kind of coming a little closer. I believe that the Beatles did sue Apple for the use of Apple Core. I think they had to become Apple Corporation or something like that. I vaguely remember that, but yeah, it's interesting because we got Danny's in the chat. Good to see you. And I see David's got another smartphone, 275, man. Better insure that collection. But yeah, so the story is that the Beatles, when they started their own record label, they started Apple Core, right? So a little play on words, Apple Core. And Apple Core was their record label. Did you know that I think the first record that they released was James Taylor's solo, first debut record? Interesting. Then they had Badfinger, and they had all kinds of other stuff, Apple Core, and they still Apple Core still exists. So anyway, Apple went from Apple Corporation, Apple Computer Corporation, I think it was, or something like that, and then they now they're just Apple. Now they dropped the computer, and now they're just Apple. And it's in the time that they've become Apple that they the audio is crackling. Let me just dial back the gain here a little bit. Maybe that'll help. I'm still getting used to this mic, so this is a condenser mic, not a dynamic. So let's see how we go here. So crackling, better. Okay, we'll just okay, good. So here we are. But I mean, is Apple doing what they need to do to meet Tim Cook's challenge of continuing to tell a story that is needed to be told, or that is worth being told, I guess. So thank you, Danny. I've got all kinds of audio interfaces around me now, and I don't know why the Behringer, I could hear myself, but clearly it wasn't coming through there. So we'll figure it out. I'm going to blame Windows or Behringer because they both they both deserve to be blamed. So we've got the iPhone. So one thing that I've been criticized for over the past several years is that the video that got me on the map, quote unquote, for a lot of people was this video where I said I wasn't going to pre-order the new iPhone when the iPhone XS Max came out, and XS Plus. Oh, Jesus Christ! They got me so confused these days. And then when the phone came out, I did buy it so I could review it, and people got mad at me because I think a lot of people thought that this was an Apple hate channel, and I was not happy with Apple at that time. That much is true. However, um, however, Apple over the past couple of years, I mean, they've started to do things that are a little bit more custom friendly. I mean, and then they turn around and take away the charger out of the box and those kinds of things. But they've done more. They've done more customer friendly stuff, and they. I don't know. I don't want to give them too much credit, but at the same time, I want to give them credit. Like their products have gotten better. The M1 chip is fantastic. The 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 overall sort of future of Apple is looking better. But and we've talked about this before. Can we really expect Apple to continue to dominate the tech world? Hey, we got Tech Odyssey. Speaking of tech, in the chat, we got a super chat from Bushin. Are you Bushin? Are you my cat? I don't know what that means, but anyway, thank you. Want to say thank you. You showed me what made LG special hardware producer. Got my final LG phone for a while on the G8X dual screen. Still learning the second screen, but having that headphone jack. Thanks again. No problem, man. No problem. I hope you enjoy the phone, and it does seem like we're all on our final LG phones, and that's kind of sad. Now, Bob, I've got so many audio I got an audio interface over here. I've got an audio interface over there. I got a brand new audio face right over here. And then this PreSonus mic that I'm using is a USB mic that they sent to me to do a review and to try out. So I guess it's a trial by fire for PreSonus. I did play around with it doing some music stuff the other day, and I'm not totally sold. They have presets. I don't know how I feel about any of the presets. Once again, we go through and we've got this like weird robot sound, and then we've got this is slapback reverb kind of thing, so I could sound like Elvis. Thank you very much. And then we've got like some sort of distortion thing, and then we've got what I was using. So yeah, I don't know. And Tony says LG's failure should be even more of a testament to Apple's resilience. That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, for one thing, Apple is a company that I think was very well put together for the modern marketplace, right? Because Apple's like the world's biggest bespoke company, right? They make their own phones, their own operating system, their own computers. Everything that Apple does is in-house. So it's a vertical stack and not a horizontal stack. And so like, I still remember this from when I learned economics. Like, so Pepsi is a vertical business, whereas they own all the means of production. They own the distribution points, all that kind of stuff. Pepsi owns like KFC and Taco Bell and all that, Pizza Hut, I think, a lot of different things. Whereas Coke was a business that sort of owned the means of production, but then sort of the distribution was outside of that purview. So I think Apple was really well put together in the sense that they didn't have too many things happening. So they were. Why are we doing the bird in the chat? Why are we doing the bird? It's great. But Dom says, I personally feel Apple lost their way when they took out the headphone jack. I know it's an argument that has been fought over the internet, but it seemed like a move away from their core. I agree. Core, very good pun. Very good pun there. Apple Core, I get it. But well, I mean, to me, I agree with you on that. And I said the same thing. I mean, if the genetic material of the iPhone was the iPod, and the iPod was directly attached to music as its reason for being, then it didn't seem to make sense to take away the thing that was like the best way to listen to music. But I guess the writing was on the wall, because we could look and say, months before that, Apple bought Beats. Beats is a headphone company, and of course, while Beats wasn't necessarily a wireless headphone company at that time, Beats was moving in that direction, and I think that's the direction that Apple wanted to go. So now we see that Apple recognized an opportunity. They recognized that wireless headphones were going to be a thing. They recognized that they could do that thing where they do the problem solution thing. So they created a problem. No good wireless headphones out there. And wow, we just took away the headphone jack. So they created that problem, and then they fixed it with the AirPods. And in a way, it was a smart business move, but it was like a hostile move toward the customers, for sure. Because the problem is, they could have gone with the wireless headphone thing and made the AirPods and still had the headphone jack. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They decided to force their customer base to adopt a new technology instead of being customer friendly. So I'll agree with you on that, in the sense that Apple just really wasn't that was a move that was somewhat against the grain for them. However, we have seen things like that in the sense of, the whole "you're holding it wrong" thing. So I don't know. I think that they've become more targeted, and they've become better at understanding and anticipating the marketplace and anticipating their customer behavior. Are the Apple AirPods better than the Samsung Pods? I haven't heard the most recent Samsungs, but I've heard the Beats, not the Beats, the original Buds, and I've heard the Buds Live, and the AirPods. All the AirPods are better than those sound wise. The Buds are getting better, but the AirPods are still sort of like on top of the world. So Jermaine, let me keep up here. Jermaine says, I saw the writing on the wall when Apple had us sticking our Apple Pencils into the bottom of our iPads to charge it. I could feel the wrath of Steve Jobs' ghost whenever I charged my pencil. Well, it's not just the pencil; it's also the Magic Mouse. It's also and now that Johnny Ive is gone, I think that I know where all of that was coming from. I think Johnny Ive was designing like really attractive products, but the functionality wasn't as good as it needed to be in order for it to really stand up to Apple's desires. If you notice it, like, remember when that first Apple Watch came out and they had like the Hermes version, and they had one that was made out of whatever, and it was like $20,000. It was Johnny Ive that wanted to have all of those like super expensive, fashiony Apple Watches. And if you notice, since Johnny Ive has left, there's no more of those Apple Watches coming out. I think they still do like the Hermes bands and that kind of thing. So I think that Johnny Ive was sort of one of the progenitors of that kind of thing. And now that he's gone, but Khalil is disagreeing with me. What is the disagreement? I sort of disagree with that assessment because you can still listen to music through the Lightning port. Now, once they get rid of that, which they will, then I'll agree with that. Well, the problem with listening to music through the Lightning port, which is the same as listening through the USB port with Android phones, is that the way that the architecture of the chips happen is different. Like there, you had a lot of different choices in DACs and amps and that kind of thing that you could put into a system for the headphone jack, but there wasn't an ecosystem of any of that kind of stuff for the Lightning port or whatever. When they did the Lightning dongle, there was no like converter inside of the phone. The Lightning dongle is what converted the signal from digital to analog, and it's and so that's what the dongle was for. Now they've made it different. But even with USB-C, I see Hitchhiker saying that there's more choice with USB-C. The thing that I'm surprised about that I thought I would see more of is USB-C being adopted by well-known headphone companies, and then sort of adopting that protocol. But I haven't seen a lot of the Sennheisers of the world going out and making USB-C headphones. And so I guess the writing is on the wall. Nobody wants wired headphones anymore. I will agree that in terms of being mobile and that kind of thing, wireless headphones are much more convenient. You don't get tangled up. They don't get yanked out of your ears. All those different kinds of things. I mean, they are much more comfortable and easy to use in that sense. It was sort of a bummer to me that headphones became sort of like a lifestyle accessory instead of a quote unquote tool. When they took away the headphone jack, like the headphone jack was not just a big deal because of wired headphones. There were a lot of people who used their iPhones in professional situations that the headphone jack could integrate with other professional pieces of gear. And once they took that away, until they made adapters for everything, they couldn't do it. And so Apple just basically said it's not important to us. So Dom says no one makes USB-C headphones absolutely no one makes headphones that charge with USB-C, and in 2021 that's unacceptable. Now that's not exactly true, Dom. That's not exactly true, because I think that my Sony WHXM 1004 four score and 20 years ago, whatever it is, I think those Sonys do charge with USB-C. I have, and I know that the THX Panda has a USB-C charger, but it's only been in the last year or so that we've seen the USB-C starting to be adopted. Now, you have to remember that in the headphone industry, it's not like every year there's a new version of a product. Usually in the headphone industry, I mean, I still haven't replaced the battery in my UPS, so you guys get to listen to it. It does this a couple of times a day. It just beeps to tell me that the batteries are no longer able to be charged enough to do the thing, so I have to replace them. Anyway, so it's a lot of companies like these Fostex that I have right here. if I can get them off of here. These Fostex headphones. This design was first put into the marketplace in like the 70s, and it's remained basically the same ever since then. You know, these Sonys are also a design that's been around for decades. The Sennheiser HD 600s are 30 something years old. So headphones don't necessarily change their design and update themselves very often. So I think one of the reasons why a lot of headphones don't I think one of the reasons why a lot of headphones don't take USB-C yet is that is that they, you know, it's just a longer period of time for them to update. Now, I will say in the gaming headset world, we're starting to see more USB-C because the new consoles are USB-C. However, so I have a review of the Sennheiser Arctis 7X and 7P, which are their newest headphones that are geared toward the Xbox Series X and the PS5. And they're really great headphones. But the funny thing is, they have a little dongle that you stick into the console, and it's USB-C. But if you need to charge the headphones, it's a micro USB plug, and that to me just doesn't make any sense because they send you like 7 cables in the box. Shouldn't have to be that many cables. Bob, it's funny. These Fostex come with a 1/4-inch cable, and you can get different cables for them, but they come with a 1/4-inch cable. No, no 1/8-inch cable, 1/8-inch plugs for those. It actually really limits the places that you can use it. So, Stevie is in the house. Good to see you. Ex Plumber, I think that a lot of the dongles are doing that. I think that for USB-C and for Lightning, um, there's something about the conversion that doesn't happen inside the phone. Although it might now. I remember talking about this a long time ago. But I do know that the little barrel that most of those adapters have does have some sort of conversion in it. I'm surprised that we haven't seen like USB-C or Lightning dongles that are sort of like high quality DACs. I mean, the closest things that we've seen, Dragonfly makes adapters that do that kind of thing, but we don't see it very often. You know what I mean? And I thought by now, I mean, it's 2017 is when the first headphone company. Geez, 2017 is when Apple took away the headphone jack. This is what I get when I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. Um, but yeah, I think that I thought that we would see a lot more stuff than we're seeing now. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Dom. There is a DAC inside of that little barrel that comes with the adapter. That's part of the adapter. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think that most people have just kind of given up on the idea of a. I think that most people have given up on the idea of wireless or wired headphones, which is kind of a bummer. And Apple started that, and they forever should be, you know, in the doghouse for doing that. Because so, what are we going to see from Apple in these next? Okay, so it's 45 years now. It's going to be 50 years in 2026. What are we going to see 45 years from now? What are we going to see, you know, from Apple? Will Apple still be around? I don't know. There's probably a good chance that they will be. But it's amazing to me how much things have changed since Apple sort of opened the Pandora's box of Well, really with the iPod. I think the iPod was the thing. Um, I don't know if you guys saw the Steve Jobs movie that Michael Fassbender was in. Um, man, if they sold like miniature space donuts, I would buy one. I would live in like a 3,000 square foot space donut. Um, but but if you've seen the Steve Jobs movie with Michael Fassbender, there's a scene in that movie at the end where they've just Steve Jobs has just come back to Apple. I'm trying to remember if this is correct, and they've just introduced the first iMac. And I remember the scene being something like as they're walking out to the parking lot, Steve Jobs like is telling whoever he's talking to about his new idea for 1,000 songs in your pocket. And the 1,000 songs in your pocket thing was really the thing that changed everything, right? Because up until that point, I mean, we had Walkman and we had CD Walkman and all that kind of stuff, but there had to be a reason to create something like that. There had to be a reason to create something like that. And once Steve Jobs found, the idea for the iPod, and as the iPod slowly it became the Trojan horse by which digital music sort of took over the music industry. I mean, the iPod legitimized digital music, right? So with the iPod, I think that's when everything really started to change. And the iPhone then was a natural extension of the iPod, which changed everything as well. And that's not like that's not an iPhone versus Android kind of thing. It's not like a judgment call on which one is better, so much as the iPod and then the iPhone were they're cultural touchstones that sort of signaled a sea change in the way that we do our thing. Um, and so and Android was right there, but the thing about Android was, again, it's because of the way that Apple is structured, right? Apple is structured in such a way that they create singular products that then sort of go on. And Android's structure is that they create the software that is then iterated on by the manufacturers that make the phones. And so it's more difficult to be singular in that way. Um, and so iTunes, I guess was part of it. I saw iTunes as like a way to legitimize the the marketplace of digital music. But for me, it looking back on the history of portable music, like the the act of like sitting down in your home and putting on a record and listening and really paying attention was, I mean, that wasn't something that everybody engaged in, but almost everybody would get in their car and they would drive. They would drive with the radio on, and then they would drive with like an 8-track in the deck, and then they would drive with a cassette, then they would drive with a CD, and then suddenly, they could take, not just a handful of CDs. They could take 1,000 songs and go. And so to me, like the delivery method is more important than iTunes, because iTunes kind of sucked for a long time, and then there was all this, um, and then there was all the DRM kind of stuff. Um, you can well you can load your own stuff that you didn't buy from the iTunes store onto an iPod. The iTunes store was the way that you was like the interface. But yeah, that's another thing that Apple did that was, in a business sense, very smart, is they didn't allow you to they did not allow you to just use the iPod as a hard drive that you could dump stuff onto. You had to go through their system. And so I see what you're saying, Hitchhiker, in the sense that, iTunes was very integral to the functionality of the iPod, but I think the iPod is what changed what changed the paradigm of how we interact with music. And that then changed the paradigm of how we interact with videos. That changed the paradigm with how we interact with other people. I know there was text messaging before the iPhone, and there was BlackBerry and all that kind of stuff, but it was nowhere near as easy to do, and it was nowhere near as and the penetration of those devices was nowhere near as deep as it is right now. So looking at all those things, I just see this straight line from like the iPod forward. And I think that's kind of why in that Steve Jobs movie, I think that's why they stopped. That was the end of the film when he brings up that idea of the iPod, because the history of Apple beyond that became something entirely different. And so when I look at the iMac, the iMac saved Apple's computer business. But if the iMac was the only thing, right? If the iMac was the only thing, if they remained a computer company and the iMac was their sort of flagship product for beginning the next phase of Apple's life as a company, then Apple wouldn't be what they are today. So I guess that's some of where I'm coming from. Let me catch up with the chat here a second. If you ever moved those files and plugged in your iPod, it would stop you from listening to the songs, even though they were on your iPod taking up space. Yeah, it wasn't it wasn't a perfect system. Although I did like when Apple started offering the service of uploading all of your music collection to Apple servers for like $25 a year. That to me was when it was when it really worked, because then you could have like your collection, and there wasn't that really kludgy, awkward connection between the two. Anyone in here ever work or visit either Crazy Eddie's or Circuit City? Circuit City all the time. There was a Circuit City on Union Square and 14th Street in New York City, and it's still there, but it's a Best Buy now. I know that Best Buy bought out a lot of the Circuit Cities, but I don't remember Circuit City being any better or worse than Best Buy. But then again, it's been quite a long time. CompUSA was another one. Yeah, I remember going to CompUSA. There was a CompUSA on Broadway, just south of the New York City Public Library. Can't remember what cross streets, but yeah, CompUSA was great. I remember there was it may still be there. There was a Mac repair place that I'm blanking on the name of it now, on 23rd Street, on the west side. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, I loved being able to go into stores and look at things and touch things. I know it's like somewhat more accentuated because I'm in Iowa now, but the death of sort of retail, physical retail is kind of a drag, because now it's like, yes, there's a convenience of ordering things online and you can get anything that you want, but I don't know, man. I used to like to go into music shops and record shops and all those kinds of places and play guitars, look at CDs or records or whatever, and it always seemed like you had a much greater chance of finding something that you weren't looking for that turned out to be like a special thing. And and now like you can't like you can't browse Apple Music or Tidal or Spotify in the same way that you could browse a record store. And to me, that's just it's just more difficult and sort of non-organic way to it's just a non-organic way to to discover things. And I know that streaming services have gotten a lot better at their discovery algorithms over the years. And to be fair, when I put on like my Jason Lewis station or favorites or whatever it is, Apple Music does a pretty good job of serving me stuff that I like. And recently I've noticed that it's serving me stuff that I've not put in my listen to or put in my collection that I hadn't heard before for many, many years. Like they put they put Volcano Suns in my playlist as I was listening to it. So yeah, it's they're getting better, but it's not the same experience. And the Spotify playlist, Hitchhiker, the Spotify playlist to me is like the opposite of like what the core of the music listening experience. The Spotify playlist is like the mixtape that you would make. So you take your favorite songs and you put them in the car and you listen to them there, or you make a mixtape for your a girl or a guy that you like or something like that. And Spotify kind of works off of individual songs and playlists instead of albums. And albums from basically from the time of the Beatles, like the mid '60s. Let's just say Revolver being the sort of quote unquote concept album, and then so they move on from there. Albums were an art form that existed, and it became the way that you experienced music was to buy an album of 12 songs and then listening to it, and that was the experience. But when you take individual songs and you just put them all together, it doesn't have that cohesiveness that albums did, and that's one thing that I really liked. Um, so when Spotify came around, its discovery was based on songs and not albums. And I've talked about this before. Apple Music is like the grandson of a service called Mog, MOG. And Mog was one of the original streaming apps, and it was more focused on album selection and then going from there. And Apple Music being like, so that Mog became Beats Music became Apple Music. Apple Music still has in its DNA, like kind of going deeper into things other than it, and looking at collections as opposed to individual songs. So that's one of the reasons that I like Apple Music. My thing is like, so Hitchhiker, I'm gonna guess that you and I are probably separated by at least 10 years. And my listening experience was never like I never discovered things by happenstance, right? And I feel like listening to music playlists and discovering new things. Like when I listen to a playlist, if an unfamiliar song comes on, 8 times out of 10, I'm going to forward it on because I want to hear like the playlist of songs that I know and like. So I don't necessarily discover new music that way, but I would go out and buy albums that I didn't. Probably 30 years. Thank you, man. But I would go out and buy albums by artists that I'd never listened to, and try that and listen to that whole record and discover things. Or there would be friends and all that kind of stuff. I remember one of the greatest ways to discover music was I was friends with the guys that worked at my local record stores and all that kind of stuff, and I would hang out in the record store all the time. I've told the story about how I met my wife by seeing her in a record store. Um, my friend Jack, who was the manager of Wizard Records, uh, which was a place that I hung out all the time, he turned me on to so many great records that, like, the older guys that worked at the record store when he was my age had turned him on to. And I just whole whole avenues of new music opened up, and just yeah, there's I just don't feel like that experience exists in a streaming service. But then again, it streaming services developed at a time when my habits and how I did things were already formed. So I'm sure that there are ways to do it. I just never have developed them. We got a super chat from Fad Produce, $5. Thank you, sir. He says, "I'm sad I missed yesterday's LG topic stream. I'm one of the other 12 people that use LG phones as a daily driver V60 with dual screen right now." Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter complaining that now that LG is going under or getting out of the smartphone business, all these people are coming out of the woodwork, you know, saying, "Woe is me! Can't believe we love LG's phones." And I mean, there's a point there. There are. I mean, at least if you look at influencers on YouTube, who I really say the influencers on YouTube are the ones who really have had the most influence in smartphone trends, right? The news source for smartphones has become, like, YouTube influencers are among the most important people in terms of building people's thought processes and habits about smartphones. And since the LG G5, the coverage of LG phones by the bigger influencers on YouTube has dwindled to nothing. Nothing at all. I mean, there might be a cursory mention of a phone, a first impressions, or something like that, but it's been many years at this point since an LG phone came out, and it was like an event to and it was an event to the influencers on YouTube. And I think part of that was the fact that I remember Erica Griffin covering the LG G5, and it was like, they were doing that modular thing where you could take the battery out and put a new battery in, and the phone was like painted really poorly, and just like she tore that phone to pieces, and then it proved itself out to be not a very good phone. But I remember like MKBHD reviewing the G8. I think it was or it was the G7. I think it was the G7. And he just bitch slapped that phone so hard. And it was stuff that like I feel like different manufacturers had not been judged as harshly, and after a while, like, LG just wasn't being covered by people. It didn't matter that LG, had three cameras on the phone first. It didn't matter that LG, I think, they had so many different kinds of um of firsts with their phones, but at the end of the day, LG made their own mistakes, and then when it comes to mentioning Android Central and podcast and Pocket Now, and of course we've got Juan, and we've got TK, and we've got all those people who covered LG phones religiously. I think that, unfortunately, content on a platform like YouTube, it's like you have to go with whatever's getting the views, and that's one reason why I'm kind of like not necessarily all that interested in talking about smartphones exclusively anymore, because smartphones, the market is dwindling. The difference from one smartphone to the next is not all that great. I mean, it's a real transition point. I think, for me, but definitely for a lot of other creators, as time goes on, it's going to be a much different kind of transition point. Where, okay, if we're not talking about smartphones, or we don't want to talk only about LG or Samsung or Apple, what do we do? I mean, my answer to that question is like, well, this is one attempt at answering that question. I'd come on and talk about whatever news there is out there. But when you're a content creator and you know that there's views in Apple, and you know that there's views in Samsung, and you know that you're risking not getting views if you cover an LG phone. Most people, so if the bigger YouTubers don't cover it, then the smaller YouTubers don't cover it, because the smaller YouTubers are using the bigger YouTubers' content strategies as their crutches, right? They're looking like MKBHD is doing this, and then they do the same thing. I mean, you can see it visually, you can see it in the topics, you can see it in all these different things. And unfortunately, I mean, the entertainment industry, by and large, is a copycat industry, right? I mean, it's people are only going to do what's successful, and the people that are out there with the biggest audiences are going to, on some level, dictate what is successful, because they have the largest audiences. And that's one thing about YouTube that's very frustrating. And Septian says, never use someone else's strategies. That's lazy. It's lazy, yes. It's uninspired, yes. But if you're a brand new YouTuber, or you're trying to break into a scene, it's hard not to try and do some of the things that bigger creators do, because you want to be somehow relatable to the audience. And I think that's why we see a lot of YouTube channels that are copycats, and they don't realize that. I mean, maybe they realize it, but there are a lot of YouTubers that just kind of do the same thing as everybody else, and there's not a lot of originality in well, there's originality in YouTube for sure, but in tech YouTube, not really. It's like, it's just one of those things where it is a it is a follow the leader kind of thing if you want to grow. Drone Lord says YouTube influencers are more interested in being YouTubers with big audiences than putting out actual quality info, except for Jason. Well, I mean, I'd love big audiences, but I think also the thing is, I think everybody's scared that they won't have any audience, and I mean that's definitely frightening to me, because, like, if you look at the trajectory of my channel, if you look at that whole arc, when I when I had the big video with I'm not getting the iPhone, or ordering the iPhone, right? That set me up. I mean, the people who watched those videos, that set me up as like Apple hate channel, right? Like, and a certain group of people would come out and say, like, oh, this is the guy that delivers me like my daily dose or weekly dose of Apple vitriol, right? I mean, Lewis Rossman is another person who does that. Talos of Tech is on the other side of that. But but the thing is, it got to the point where once I started making videos that weren't about Apple and specifically about Apple hate. And once I started like talking about like, oh, maybe I like this, maybe, going back and forth, it can like, I felt like the audience got frustrated and confused. And I guess I don't blame them, because when you've got a good thing going, you're just supposed to keep going with it. So now I'm in this position where it's like, I don't feel comfortable doing the same thing over and over again. And I need to find a way to talk about the things that I like to talk about and not have it be confusing to the audience. But I feel like over the past year or so, a lot of my content not being willing to sort of drive the car that sort of took me off, dance with the one that brung me, and just keep hitting that note has made it, kind of challenging for me to get the kind of views that I was getting before. So I honestly don't know what the solution to that is. Talk about Game of Thrones. I made a Game of Thrones video, and it made a lot of people mad. All the entertainment videos that I make just make people mad. Painfully Honest Hardware. Yeah. I mean, I've thought about dropping the tech from the name. I've thought about starting other channels. I've thought about doing a lot of different things. But ultimately, like, I don't want the next phase of my YouTube life to be like, trying to figure out like what angle I'm going to take at the algorithm that will then like send me off on another wave. Like I want it to be something that builds like from a natural place, that I can do the things that I want. I can make the content that I want. I can talk about the things that I want to talk about with a crowd of people that want to talk about it with me. And I don't have to chase the algorithm or the trends. Like this could be an Apple channel. I could just make it an Apple. And so some people might say it is an Apple channel. Apple's a company that I'm interested in. You can look on YouTube on any given day. A lot of folks that I know and you guys watch, that's what they do. That's what they do. They have Apple channels, and they do very well because the message is consistent. The videos are going to be about Apple. And I don't know. That to me is uncomfortable. And you're right. Like ultimately, I want to be a personality-based YouTuber, or another way to say it is I want my personal brand to be what people bring to the table. What is my most disliked video? Not enough people watch The Last of Us Part 2 review to be in the running for that. But I think probably the most disliked video of recent years is my Sony wireless earbuds versus AirPods Pro version. Like, man, Sony, like the Sony people, I still get comments on that like almost every day, where people are like, "You're such a Apple whatever, blah de blah," and yeah, it's unfortunate. But I think that's probably my most disliked. That's my most disliked video of at least recent years. I had a lot of gaming headset videos that had they call it ratioed more dislikes than likes. I've had several videos that have had more dislikes than likes. So Hitchhiker, I think that in some ways, yes. People come to like listen to the person. It's like the best example of this right now is probably Joe Rogan, because it doesn't really matter like who Joe Rogan has on his podcast. There is some sort of narrative or like overarching consistency to it, but people go to watch Joe Rogan's podcast because they have a sense of what Joe Rogan's podcast is going to deliver to them. It doesn't necessarily matter who's on the show that particular day, right? And And so, like, that's the kind of thing that I think is sustainable. Being solely an Apple channel or solely a Samsung channel or solely a beauty channel or any of those things. I mean, you got to realize that if you're a beauty YouTuber, your trajectory is get popular, start a brand of your own products, sell those products, and then, go off to the next thing. Because you can't just do makeup tutorials for the rest of your life. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with tech. Like I can't just I, I can't just review whatever new phone is out ad nauseum year after year after year. There has to be some sort of growth. There has to be um, some sort of expansion. And that's kind of where I am right now. And I look at channels like, in fact, I was like, Michael Fisher sent me a message this morning. We'd been going back and forth on Twitter DMs just about how things were going with YouTube and how weird YouTube is and stuff. And he feels like he's been able to do an expansion of the content that he covers. I mean, when he was working with Pocket Now, it was mobile tech, right? And it was mostly smartphones. But now he's moved out to all kinds of different things. And you look at guys like the Tech Chap, you look at guys like Dave Lee and Saf and other people. Like as they've grown, they've started to cover a wider variety of tech, and people still show up. So you have to make that transition at some point from being like, the guy that says the grouchy things about Apple to being something a little bit more well-rounded that people come back for. And I think Rich from Review Tech is a great example. Rich was kind of a shock and awe channel there early, like for a while in his earlier days, and now he's just sort of developed into, he sort of reports on and gives commentary on stuff that's going on in sort of like the gaming and entertainment space writ large in that whole place, and so I think that Rich, but I know that Rich has struggled from time to time on like how do I make my videos? Do I make gameplay videos? Do I sit in front of the camera? Do I do this? Do I do that? He's really struggled with how to deliver his material, and I think he's figured it out now, and he's doing very well. I mean, he's close to 1 million subscribers at this point, isn't he? And I've been watching Rich since he had like probably 100-something thousand at least, and he's just sort of found his thing. But he's been doing YouTube for a living for a long, long time. So Swarthy Daisy says, I agree. I'm a small channel and had to expand to selling digital products because the views have dropped as of late. We all have to grow from where we started. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, one thing that I've been thinking about. I want to cover more audio related stuff. I really know a lot about, professional and prosumer, semi-professional audio stuff. And I know that's something that a lot of people need to know more about these days, because work from home and Zoom and all this stuff is not going to go away. And it's stuff that really interests me. I want to do more of that, but it's really hard for me to do more of that. And like, the YouTube algorithm's like, this doesn't have Apple in the tags. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so I have to slowly start like transition over to that. And one thing that I'm thinking about doing in terms of introducing different things, I'm trying to build a mailing list so that I can be in contact with people in some way other than YouTube. Got a new website. The website is up. It's Painfully Honest. I've got like Painfully Honest Tech and painfullyhonesttech.com and all this other. So I can't remember which one it is. Painfullyhonesttech.com is where you can go to join the mailing list. And I'm going to do like newsletters and, like lists of things and product opportunity, like discount opportunities on products and that kind of stuff. But also, I've been thinking about setting up like a time where you can sort of book a time with me, like say book an hour, and we could talk about whatever. But one of the things that I could do is sort of consult with people about like how do you build like a YouTube setup? What kind of microphone could I get? What sort of camera? What's the budget, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been thinking about things like that as well, and it's really it's just challenging to get all that stuff going. It's everything changes when you go to full time. Suddenly you have these opportunities that you kind of could see as opportunities before you went full time, but you didn't really have the time to do it. And so now it's just a matter of like organizing your time in such a way that you can do those things. And that means changing your entire work pattern and getting stuff done differently, like getting 4 or 5 videos recorded at once instead of one video a day, which is what I'm trying to do. And yeah, somebody mentioned Zach from Jerry Rig Everything is doing like, he's oh yeah, here it is. Uh, he's doing like his solar powered house, and he did that video about making an elevator in his house for his wife, and he's doing more stuff than just like stress testing phones, right? And the really smart thing about Zach is that he took something that was really nicely compartmentalized. Like, phone comes out, you do a series of videos where you're stress testing it in different ways. And that was such an easy content strategy because you didn't really have to do anything other than that. But after a certain amount of time, like, you can't just keep doing that. So he's found ways to expand from that. And I know channels that have gone from being tech channels to being eco and smart home channels to Tesla channels to like all this other stuff. But my hope is that I'm able to just like put together a channel that's based around more of a community of people who are interested in things, and we can like you know I can learn things from the community can learn things from me, and it be more organic than I'm just trying to create a content strategy. I mean, maybe that's being naive, um but yeah, it's a totally different thing. And yet, Dom, when I went full time, I was really nervous. I mean, I had a really good job. I had a job that I could have stayed in for the rest of my working life, and maybe I should have. There are a lot of things that I miss about doing that job, and but it's still, I'm about a year and a half in to like being fully full time. And month to month, I'm paying the bills and I'm having some extra money and that kind of thing. But I don't feel like I'm I feel like right now I'm just starting to build a business. Like, I haven't mentioned Restream this stream, but Restream has sponsored the channel to do these live streams and to help them get the word out about their service. And that's, I'm not just doing it out of the goodness of my heart. They've been fortunate enough to make an investment in what I'm doing. Um, and so I'm hoping that live streaming can be a part of the thing. I think that live streaming on YouTube has been sort of stunted. I feel like there's an opportunity for live streams to be more attractive, more have more of that connection. Like, we're here having a conversation at this point. It's not just me like statically delivering you content. It's a dynamic thing. And now that live communication on the computer has become so much more of a prevalent thing and so many more people are familiar with it, then then it becomes this becomes a much more um, a much more dynamic thing. And I'm hoping that in doing this, people will tune in on a regular basis just to be a part of the conversation. Yes, to hear some of the news and some of the commentary that I might have about it, but just to have conversations about it as well. So I I got some new merch coming out. I do have some new merch coming out, Septian. But if you're watching on your computer and you look below this live stream, there are some pieces of merch out there. I'm working on some new merch that I think is going to be pretty cool. So that hopefully that's coming soon. Um, well, I know it's coming soon. Just when, I'm not totally sure. Oh, geez, somebody texted me. Shit. No, that's my computer. That's my computer. Oh, I still get iMessages. So anyway, I mean, Dom, like everybody. Well, see, that's the goal is like everybody needs to make money from sponsorships, and sometimes that's doing videos and like putting ad reads in front. Sometimes that's doing videos. Like for me, I never do a review of something. Um, the black glasses are on a T-shirt, Jermaine. They're there. Um, just look down there. But the goal is to get as many different retail or like as many different revenue streams flowing in as possible, and and that's ultimately like you never count on one thing. Like AdSense, AdSense is great, but I don't know, not in your size. What the hell size do you need, man? um, but anyway, so it's just been a really interesting it's just been a really interesting time because things are definitely changing. This past year, who knows what my channel or YouTube or the world or anything would be like if this past year of pandemic and everybody being inside and basically every part of life changing. Who knows what things would be like now if that hadn't been part of the equation, but now it has been. And it's hard to understand, like, I mean, when the pandemic first started, and I was making like more dramatic videos trying to make people, get an emotional reaction out of people, it just felt stupid for me to make dramatic videos trying to get a reaction out of people about, you know, smartphones when people were like, people were getting sick and dying. So like I had to recalibrate, like, how can I do this in such a way that I don't feel like a hypocrite and I'm ignoring the reality of the world and, still do it in a way that I enjoy it, and still do it in a way that people will want to watch. And I feel like I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. And I appreciate Don that I know you're joking around. But yeah, I mean, the fact that I've been able to get a couple more sponsorships at the beginning of this year has made a big difference in what it's possible for me to do. Like the videos that I'm making right now, I'm having edited by other people, and thumbnails I'm sending off to other people. That gives me um, that gives me more time to do this live stream stuff. It gives me more time to make other videos. If I don't have to worry about editing them and I don't have to worry about the thumbnails and I'm just managing that, then it's a whole different thing than having to make every piece of content from soup to nuts. And hopefully it frees up more time to do more things. So felt stupid. You felt stupid being in dramatic videos like Unbox Therapy? Yes. I mean, Lou is a different kind of show person than me. Lou is more comfortable doing what Lou does. I don't think I would be comfortable doing that. Although I do like the way that he does his Lou Later show. Um, and that's part of the reason why I want to do something like this. I feel like there's an opportunity to be more fluid, more conversant, more responsive to the audience when you do that, right? So, um, Tony, I love The Last of Us One. Is still my favorite game of all time. But I really wanted to give The Last of Us 2 a chance, and I didn't want to go in with any sort of like sacred cows or sacrosanct things about the game. I wanted to sort of experience it for itself and judge it that way. I feel like a lot of the people who made content about The Last of Us 2 were making content about The Last of Us 2 with an agenda that was theirs and not the game's. And I just tried to be like totally separate from that, right? So I do use Canva, because the one, like, in doing these live streams, what I do is, I get up, I look at the news stories, I see if there's anything super important or worthy of talking about, and then I schedule the live stream, I make a thumbnail, I put it up. So that has to be faster than what I could expect from a second party. So I do that and I'm using Canva now a lot more than I used to. I used to do everything in Photoshop, and Photoshop is great, but you know, um, yeah, there's no Johnny Carson of YouTube, and there never will be. But I will say that one person who has been very successful at taking the germ of the idea of something um, from traditional media, like television media, and has brought it over to YouTube and made it work, is Mr. Beast. If you think about Mr. Beast's videos it's just a game show, right? It's a different kind of game show. It's a 21st century game show. It exists in different places, but Mr. Beast's videos are game shows. So those old models still work. I mean, I think, maybe Philip DeFranco maybe isn't like the Johnny Carson of YouTube, but Philip DeFranco is definitely like an appointment view for a lot of people. So, it is a thing, and I think you bring up a good point, KG Virtu, is like having a foil, having a co-host or something like that is always really good, and I really enjoyed doing that with Zach and Viper. It was just kind of a thing where I decided to try something different this year, because I I just never I had just never done it this way. I had never just sort of relied on myself and just talking to the audience and going through the topics and being, more sort of off the top of my head. And I think, a lot of times I go off on tangents and stuff like that, and I know that sometimes that frustrated the two of them, and maybe it frustrated other people, but but um that's just like, I'm trying to allow my natural thing to come through a little bit more, and I felt like I could do that more if I just was my own self. You know what I mean? Um, so that's kind of that. And I saw somebody asked about Zach, and I haven't talked to Zach really since a couple of months ago. So I don't know what he's doing. He kind of like pulled away from me for some reason or whatever. I don't know exactly what's going on. I hope he's okay. I hope he's doing well. I hope he's doing what he wants to do. But yeah, I haven't heard from him. Uh, Philly D is a solid guy. I don't always agree with him, but like you, Jason, I appreciate his passion and his honesty. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about Philip DeFranco as well, is that he he's always been like sort of right up front with the way that he feels about something. I feel like sometimes he covers YouTube drama a little bit more than I care about YouTube drama, so I don't watch him as much as I might otherwise. But that's kind of the thing. YouTube drama is. I mean, I saw that like James Charles did something icky again. It's like, why is anyone surprised? That's his shtick. It's like that's when he gets views. That's when he makes money. And I that kind of stuff just um, doesn't really stick with me very well. Um, I've done some. I did like an Apple parody song, and it was a weird thing, and not many people watched it. But I have done that. That's a lot of work. It took me the better part of a week. It took me the better part of a week to do that video. Um, yeah, there's definitely going to be more music stuff. I mean, I'm slowly working my way into more music stuff. Um, and I've watched Gamer from Mars a few times. Um, and I think when I was doing Can You Trust, um, his videos popped up, and I watched some of his videos. Um, I couldn't, like, I don't know. His videos were very interesting. They weren't like drama, but they kind of were. It was a weird thing, and I didn't know that he was still making videos because he hasn't popped up on my feed for a while. No, I haven't seen any of the Sam John crossover stuff. Um, I'm sure it's good though. Those guys are funny. Those guys are funny. But it is now. So I keep going a little bit longer every day. Every day I keep going a little bit longer. I need to stick closer to the hour than the hour and a half. But anyway, I'm gonna jump off, guys. I do got stuff that I want to get done later on today, well, throughout the rest of the day. So thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully the technical difficulties didn't make it suck too much. Anyway, you guys have been awesome. Thanks for sticking with me this week and doing this thing. I'll be back next week with more live stuff. I might as well keep trying it until it's definitely tiring, but I like it. I like it. So anyway, you guys, yeah. Oh yeah, there's a holiday this weekend. If you celebrate that holiday, have a good one. And if you don't, buy the leftover candy on Monday. I guess. Anyway, you guys take care, and I will see you on Monday. Now, I got a video coming out tomorrow too, but it's already scheduled. Look at me, I'm ahead of the game. Anyway, thanks once again for being here. My name is Jason. This is Painfully Honest Daily, the daily show that just continues to do its thing. I'll be back on Monday with another Painfully Honest Daily. Otherwise, follow me on the Twitters if you don't already. It's you just look for Painfully Honest Tech, and that'll be me. Anyway, talk to you guys